And hello, we are back. We had a bit of an audio issue that has since been restored. I did have a crash before I started streaming. So we're just going to check if we're okay. Mokanaman. And if I can hear myself through my own stream, we'll get straight into it. So please bear with me for 30 seconds. As soon as this fault is confirmed to have been rectified and fixed, we will get straight into it. Thank you very much for letting me know, but until I sort of check it, I've got a bit of a tablet, so I can actually... I see. There we go. We could get straight into it. Thank you very much. I'm still very new to streaming, so there are a few faults that can go wrong, but that's okay. We'll get straight into it. I am constructing Super Fumina. Now, I've done a few Fumina kits this year, 3 of them in total, and I'm building a bit of a team. So we've got the maid version, the high school version, and this is going to be the sports crop top version. And this one's going to be the most scratch building, sculpting intent. The body and the face has some pretty heavy faults. It is a snap kit designed for snappers, so it's for easy construction of them. There is some challenges with scale modelers, but the skill set involved is not too difficult, so it can be overcome. And I want this to be completely different to the other ones. So there's going to be a bit of height changes in the limbs, the torso. The chest piece has already been changed, so the torso is a bit longer, the neck is slightly longer. And we have a bit of a ponytail and extra bangs and hair sculpted on it, more running, jogging sort of thing. So what we're doing now is we're going to construct it. We'll have all the parts, a skeleton to work off, and then from there we can sculpt and scratch build and work. And as we're building all the components, I'm filling seam lines and modding parts as we go, so we know what we are looking at. And I'll demonstrate the process of gluing the parts together and filling with putty. Now, the problem is with Gunpla, it is ABS or styrene. And when you snap it together, you've got the peg, you've got the joints, which can be seen in these pieces. We've got holes and whatnot. And it's for connecting to build tension. And with that tension, the parts are stuck together and they won't separate or anything. And because there's quite a bit of tension when solvents are involved, painting, other things, they get thicker, they get harder to assemble, or they might break chemically or with too much pressure. So a lot of I do on modeling is getting around that, so it's glued, it's together, it's painted, it's looking quite nice. And another problem with these joints is because there's so much tension when you glue them, the glue's a very weak joint. You put putty, you paint, and over time the joints might re-split because there's just not enough strength. The polycap might move inside, it might heat, expand, retract, all sorts of things. And on my older models, there are some splits. And talking to Ghost of Xeon, that's happened to a few of his models. So I've come across a new method, which I haven't actually shared on YouTube yet or Facebook, but I'm slowly working in that and work in progresses, and there's going to be a video made one day. And when I plastic cement everything together, I put a thin layer of super glue, and the super glue fills the seam, and it pretty much holds together the surface. It's quite rigid, it's very, very strong at holding things together, as well as filling the seam line, but it's a bit raised, and super glue is very, very hard to remove with sandpaper. As it is a harder material than plastic, when you sand super glue, you're going to be removing more of the plastic than the super glue, and it just looks quite terrible. So then I put putty over the super glue, and you're removing super glue and putty at the same time until it's a smooth surface where it's plastic and putty only. When I sand, and there is a regimented form to my sanding, If you use too fine of a grit of sandpaper, it takes too long to remove. You get very bored. If you use a high grit, you're scratching and removing too much material, and there's too many scratches. So I've got a range of sandpaper, which I actually write on the sandpaper, from 180 all the way to 2000. So I'll also be demonstrating that process, which I'm more likely to actually do now rather than later. So I've completely forgotten to sand this bottom panty bit, which I assembled more than 6 months ago. Now, the putty that I use, and I'll probably show either much later in the stream or another stream or video, is blade putty or bog putty for automotive work. It is a single part polyester with the hardener and the filler together, and it is thinned with lacquer thinner. So it's sort of like a very, very thick lacquer paint that doesn't shrink when it dries, which is pretty awesome. So the problem is it's like resin when airborne. This putty is not the best to breathe in. So everything's done wet sanding, and it pretty much protects our health. Now for 180 grit, we can see with this little bit here, it removes the material very, very quickly. But we are getting these scratches where once we get some paint on it, it's going to be very, very visible. And with water, it's a lubricant, it's a buffer. The scratches are not going to be as bad. And you can see that we've almost completely removed all the putty down to the super glue and the plastic. So we can move to the next level of sanding. It's almost completely flat to the touch. So we've removed the putty. The putty's not going to be seen. We need to now repair the scratches. We move down to the next grit of sandpaper. This is 240 grits. We apply a bit more force, and this is removing the layer of plastic that's been scarred and damaged, and also more of the putty. So we've done that. It's just a few scratches, and then we sand for a little longer, the high grit. 360. When you sand with 360, and a lot of the time when I remove nubs and I sand down to plastic, I'll use 360. It's or anywhere between 280 to the mid 300s. It's pretty good. It's not very noticeable in paint, but it will affect the finish. So if you want a gloss, it's going to make more of a matte finish, because what you transfer on paint also replicates the finish of the actual surface. If you've got a very shiny, very smooth surface and you put gloss, it's going to be a mirror image. If it's quite rough and bumpy and textured and you put gloss on it, it's not going to be as glossy, and it's going to have weird dents and reflection to it. So this is good if you're just going to have a matte model. If you want a gloss model, we go down to 2000, and 2000 buffs it. It gets it back to a very shiny mirror finish. And if you want it even shinier, you move up to the higher grits, 4000, 6000, and then you might even start polishing. So with the 120 grit, when I was sanding, I did it quite light. So we weren't putting scratches in the plastic too deep. And as we progress down the sandpapers, I start sanding harder and harder. And with this, I'm actually sanding as hard as I humanly can. And it's just beautifully making it into a nice smooth surface. And it doesn't matter if I want a gloss or a matte finish. If I want a matte finish, I can go back to another sandpaper, quickly buff it quite lightly, or apply a matte coat. But that's the whole process. The putty is almost completely gone. Now, if you were snapping your model together, so you applied your plastic cement, you might have put a bit of super glue down. If you don't put any coloured putty on it, you can just keep sanding and sanding and sanding and sanding. And once you get to the 2000, you won't even see a physical line. The reason why you can see a physical line here is because there's a bit of putty down the seam. If there was no putty there, the seam would be almost invisible because it's sandwiched together. And the tiny bit of super glue sitting on top is clear and invisible. So that's not going to be seen at all. That's something to consider if you do not paint whatsoever. Since I'm painting, I don't care if there's a small pink line there. That does not bother me whatsoever. So I hope that little tidbit of information has been quite useful. Another problem with sandpaper is when it gets wet and you feel it, it's really hard to feel what grit's what. So writing the numbers, you could see 2000, 360, 240, 180. So much easier to go through, and you can just pick exactly what you need and run with it. This is only something I've very recently done because I normally only sand with two sandpapers. But I found when I was doing the 3D printing stuff, it was hard to achieve a high gloss because there's always scratches and imperfections and whatnot. And looking into people who paint real cars, so you do the body work, you get dents, you put putty, you keep sanding and sanding and sanding, and then you airbrush or spray gun cars. They need to get a flat, beautiful, straight mirror finish in a short period of time to make a profit in a paint shop. And unlike a modeler, they can't sit here and sand a tiny piece for 3 to 6 hours. They need to get a whole car body done in a couple of days, and that's a lot bigger than something this tiny. So they've got to have a bit of a process. Now, they use electric sanders. That speeds things up, but you're still rubbing this orbital sander across the whole body of a car. And they use many different layers. So they do a really high grit, and they just cut the material like crazy, and they just scratch the material up like crazy. Apply some primers, some putties, and then they keep electric sanding until they get down to buffing with 2, 4, 6,000 grit and buffing solutions and whatnot. And then you get a giant surface such as a car, all glossy, in a very short period of time. So I thought that was something very interesting to learn from, and definitely can be applied into modelling. The interesting thing with modelling in general is there is so much you can actually apply your own personal knowledge, situation, background and work, or just observation of reference material that can go into your work, and it's just from your general experience. If you work in a factory or a plant and you see the side of the building rust or something, you can go, oh, if that's how a 8-10 meter building can rust, that's probably how a Gundam could probably rust. Or if you're looking at a Ferrari showroom car or something and how glossy and beautiful and how they polish it, that can be applied to making a kit look really, really cool and interesting. I knew a bit about automotive stuff and parts and paints and whatnot when I was quite young. I got out of high school. I was going into vocational study to go into my industry. I worked part-time and casually in an automotive parts company that sold everything from paints to primers, top coats, tarps, oil, even CD head units and amps, just everything. The chain was called Super Cheap Auto. Those in Australia would be familiar with it. Overseas, I don't know, you guys buy everything out of a Walmart or something from the United States. Europe would probably have different companies. I would read manuals and product cans and other things, and I'd have to learn to use products so I could sell it to customers and whatnot. And it's just interesting that, hey, if that works on a car, it might work on modelling. Now, then I was in a very serious model. I'd just do the odd plane and tank, and I'd probably buy a can of primer or something here and there and try it out and work, or sometimes it didn't work. Though a lot of that knowledge I retained and still remember today, and being a bit more serious and spending more money and trying to achieve a more superior finish, it was quite interesting. And going back to that old shop that I used to work, or even other branches, and looking at products that I used to look at, and buying it and trying it, it works out. Though back then, what I did actually do buy was just a couple of tools and the thinners. So I learnt back then, with enamels, I could use turpentine. With water-based acrylics, I could use spirits or isopropic alcohol. For lacquers, just a big fuck-off tin of lacquer thinner. That was a good 4 litres, and always saved some money in that regards when I didn't have a lot of money. I tried cheaper paints. That never worked out, and to this day I still prefer to use hobby paints. But that all works out, and as I'm talking, I've been lightly sanding all of these joints on this mid piece, And everything's almost completely nice and smooth, and I can just move down to the different sandpapers. So when I did that one joint, I wouldn't do all of it for each scene. That would take forever. I'll get the one part and I would sand every scene all the way around, or I might have half a dozen parts and do that. Though sometimes if I just work on one part, it would be 180, whatever, work your way down, put it to the side, go to the next part. If I do each part, each layer, and I stop and I might do something like feed the cat or check my emails, go to work and not look at it for multiple days, I'll forget what was the last sandpaper I used and would either have to start from scratch or do something wrong that would affect the finish of the model, which is not good if I'm trying to get something high gloss. So we've talked about finish of a model with sanding. The sanding and the smoothness of a finish can dictate how glossy your finish will be. Sometimes with matte, you want to play around for finish. So if you're doing a matte weathered kit, you might get some coarse sandpaper and just scuff up the whole model, because with Bandai plastic, it is quite shiny, it's quite smooth. The molds have been polished before the plastic's been injected. So it's not overly high gloss finish, but you can see a sheen when I move around. There's a bit of a sheen going up and down. When you put a gloss finish, it's ideal enough to have a nice glossy finish. If you polish the Bandai bit even further, you can actually get it to almost a mirror finish, and you can put paint and gloss and it looks quite beautiful. Talking on Facebook to some people, there's a general trend and ideal that when you buy airbrushes, the finer quality the airbrush you get, the less overspray and the more mirror and gloss finish you get. The biggest problem is people are doing these tests on spoons, and if you've ever looked at a plastic spoon, for something to be food safe, there can't be any textures or scratches on it. Food gets trapped in those little scratches. They grow, they get rancid, they get bacteria. You get sick eating with that plastic spoon, because some people won't just eat with a plastic spoon once and throw it out. They may use it multiple times. So it needs to be polished to the point where the plastic spoon is not harboring bacteria. So plastic spoon is a lot smoother and a lot more polished than a model kit. You put paint on it, you're putting paint on a very, very glossy bit that's more glossy or smoother finish than your proposed model kit, which has details and different surfaces. And you get a beautiful mirror gloss metallic finish. You apply that same paint via the same airbrush onto your Gundam kit or a tank or whatever. And it's not as glossy, and it's sort of like, well, what's the go? It's a bit misleading. Sometimes a kit will have a fine texture, plane and aircraft, because they're meant to be quite matte. So when they produce the plastic, they'll actually craze the plastic on purpose or put all these tiny bumps. So when you put gloss paint down, it doesn't reflect. It scatters and frosts. So you can put your clear coat down and put your decal set, and then you start putting your weathering stuff on it. It looks more matte. It's quite wonderful. When you do your test pieces or paint tests, you should have probably up in paddle pop sticks. You glue a spare part on the stick that you'll never use, like a weapon or weapon half or something. Do your paint tests on that. That will give you a far more realistic outlook of what sort of finish your kit will have, opposed to what a spoon will show you, which is a different thing that you would never really consider using or gluing onto your kit. Now, going back to the topic of airbrushes, with your airbrush, if you maintain, you get different spray patterns from a 0.2 to a 0.5. And you get your spray pattern that may be a very small section. That's where the paint lands. And then outside that, the paint sort of scatters, it dries, it's orange peels, and it's overspray. And it's not going to be quite flat. Now, when you spray out of an airbrush, people tend to put paint in there way too dry or thick, and it dries before it hits the model. And there's a term that's being used lately of a dry coat and a wet coat of paint. If you heavily thin paint and it hits the model and it's still watery and it droops off, that's known as a wet coat because it's still wet on the model. If it lands quite dry, that's a dry coat because you're dusting on. If you put on dry, there's a chance of it having a texture. You put on wet, it's going to dry solid. So when you do a gloss model, you want to do as many wet coats as possible. Even doing a wet coat, if there's something wrong with your needle or nozzle, overspray. Further particles are fanning outwards in a radius, and they're putting those particles on the outer bits of your model. And you turn the part around, you're spraying, wet coat, dry bits everywhere. You'll have a bit of a texture. Now that can happen from cheaper airbrushes, but that can also happen with shit on your needle. Your needle might have a tiny bend at the very top that you don't notice. There might be a tear in your nozzle. There might be dirt somewhere in your airbrush. It is not so much preventing this overspray that you're using a good airbrush and a Wada or a Sterner hardback or whatever. It's the condition of your airbrush. You can buy a brand new airbrush, you spray it for the first time on a spoon, beautiful finish. You get your old Hyacinth that's dirty and fucked, and you spray another spoon and it's a bit frosty. Then you can go, this airbrush is superior. But if you clean both airbrushes, and I've done it in my Honing Your Airbrush Skills video, I've put a lot of work in polishing and changing the parts, straightening out and sanding the tip of the needle, oiling everything, and doing a wet coat out of a $20 Hyacinth. I've produced very, very nice wet coats, wet finishes, and high gloss models like the Hymok I've done a while ago. That's a beautiful gloss finish with many layers of clear, and then that was polished on top of a glittery nail polish. And that was a very cheap airbrush, very cheap paints, but that produced a very, very nice finish. So it's the condition of your airbrush. The more you maintain it, the more familiar you are, the more you pull it apart, clean it, and able to change parts and identify faults and issues and problems, the better airbrusher you get. The better airbrusher you are, the finer the finish you can put down of a wet coat or a dry coat. Just because you have a fancy, expensive airbrush, maybe on your first model you'll achieve a really nice finish because your airbrush is in amazing condition. As it wears out, it's going to be problematic, and then you have to learn how to tune it back to its original setting. Once you know how to do that, you've done a few models and you can do a really good finish because you can tune your airbrush, then you're a decent airbrusher, you're a decent painter, you know what you're doing. Anyone can pick up a brand spanking new airbrush, use it 2-3 times, paint 2 models, and be considered quite a very skilled airbrusher. The problem is once that airbrush is out of tune, you don't know how to get it back to that finish. And there's a bit of a trend of people using hobby nippers, your god hands, all that sort of thing, and they're getting a beautiful cut, and it's quite flush, and they don't have to do any sanding like I'm doing right now. The biggest problem is when that nipper wears out and they don't get as good of a cut, they throw it out and they replace it with a new nipper. And generally, I'm afraid that there's going to be a culture in the future where someone will buy an airbrush, a $200, $300 airbrush. They'll paint 5 models. They'll throw out said airbrush and buy a new one because it's not producing as much of a nice finish. I'm not concerned about getting parts or anything. There's people out there with that much money and stupid concepts and putting out false information that could be a trend if a very popular modeler or someone who makes a tutorial that goes viral. And then they'll turn around and they'll see you using a Hyacinth, making beautiful models, but yet still using a Hyacinth and saying you're garbage because you're using a garbage tool. It's not how good the tool that you use, it's how you maintain it, use it, and use it to get a finish, and then repeat results. If you can repeat results, then you definitely know what you can do. People can fluke 1 or 2 good finishes, and that was the mistake I've made many years ago where I've made something that looked really good and go, oh cool, I'm pretty awesome, and then I'll produce 2 shit models and it's like, what's the go? I made something really cool, now I'm making some crap. And then it's sort of like, fuck, how do I replicate that? And that just gets intimidating, and you look at a really good model that you made and you go like, it's cool, but I can't replicate that because it just happened. And then later on, you look at that old model and then you go like, it is cool, but there's some mistakes. And if I think about it long enough, I'd know how to replicate it, but I wouldn't want to because I could do better 2, 4, 5 years down the track. So talking for however long we've been talking, And I'm a very slow modeler. It's just the fact that it is when I do something that I want to, make competition level or display level, not just a quick tank or something. I could spend quite a easily 20-30 minutes on a single piece getting it right. And this could almost be snap worthy because from afar you can almost not see any of the seams. But that means when I put paint on it, it's going to look pretty interesting. Now on the other Fumi there, kids, that piece would not normally be seen because there's a bit of a skirt. But since, and even though it does look like panties, it's going to come out as bike shorts. So I want it to look quite good because this will be a noticeable piece. Where underneath here, even though I did make these bit okay, that's not going to be seen. That's going to be covered with the torso. And it's not going to be too seen. The torso is too skinny. It's going to be bulked up with putty. And that's not as important. And I actually think I put the butt crack where the belly button is, so that's a bit weird. Okay, so that's done. I don't know why I haven't neglected that for a long time. That goes aside. I'll sand these 4 pieces. I'll eat a biscuit. Twitch can be quite difficult. You're talking a lot. And sometimes when you're talking to another person, they talk, you talk, they talk. You break, you get some saliva in your mouth, you rest your throat. But when you're talking constantly, you sort of, everything down to your sinuses gets a bit dry. And I'm still trying to get used to the whole concept of streaming and talking all the time. And even the people on this platform, when they're playing video games, they're reacting, so they're quiet, and there's a story or a cutscene or a monster that they're shooting. It's been quite interesting. Here, all we're doing is staring at my green mat and listening to me. What some of you might be doing, 'cause I want to have a big audience now, but it'll be posted online. A few people watch later, such as a radio or podcast thing, and they'll be carrying on building, painting, and maybe listening to it. It's like a radio thing, so there's an expectation to constantly audioly stimulate you guys and just constantly having a sound that's tangible all the time. All right, that was just a bit of a rant there, but that's not too much of a problem. It's more so of my shortcomings of learning how to navigate this platform for the hobby and my outlets, which, mind you, I'm actually having a lot of fun doing this, but a lot of people who stream and Twitch and whatnot, they do it for like many hours every day. I can't do it. I could probably do it for 1-2 hours. I get a bit tired. I want to talk no more or anything. There's actually a timer here. I've been here for almost half an hour. So, yeah, that's like 20 minutes sanding one bit. So here, all of these parts shown on this page has been assembled, so that's not too much of a problem. I applied the putty and sanded, but what I did was I purposely missed the seam here. That seam doesn't have any super glue in it. Well, not seam. Panel line doesn't have any super glue in it. Doesn't have any putty in it. Because I missed it on super glue on purpose. The putty, I covered it, and then I ran a toothpick across it to clear it, so I did not have to rescribe it. Scribing can be a pain in the ass, and sometimes it's hard to get the same scribe width as the original manufactured seam line. So we look at the same other side, and we've got the other leg. I just assembled both sides at the same time. Not an issue. Skirt, that's obsolete. We're not using a skirt. I've already done the torso and the crotch region. The torso or the midriff is going to have to be thickened. Skirt we're not using. Next step, the backpack's already been made and sanded. I did the backpack as the very first step, so there was something to mount onto the clear base. Afterwards, we'll make the guns, the shields and whatnot. The articulator arms. Remember, they've got a very nasty seam or a joining line on either side of it, and it requires so much sanding. It's ridiculous. Doing those 4 arms pretty much takes 2 to 3 hours in shear sanding. So when you put paint on it, they stick out so much they're really, really noticeable, and you sand it with a filing stick, and it's not as bad. But the finished result's really good, because I've seen other people's Super Fuminas, and everything looks good. You look at the back, you look at the robotic arms, and then you see that raised bit, and it's sort of like you've done a good job, but there's just that one little problem that just takes it away from being something that's quite realistic, and it's like it's jumping out of the anime or the media or whatever to I could see something that tells that it looks like a model kit. And as much as I'm not going to say whose model it was, and it's something I would not say in public, people put a lot of work in their models and they put it on display to show what it is. But then when I reflect it to how I try to finish my stuff, it's sort of like I could see that, and that slightly bothers me. But I would not push that standard on other people verbally. Now, when I look at my own work, it's sort of like I can't see that fault, so that's all right. But not being far from perfect at all, there's other mistakes I look at and go, I wish I didn't make that mistake, or I wish I was better or neater or spent more time to overcome that. Because you can get pushed to finish a project because you're just not interested in it anymore, or that there's a deadline for a competition, a display, a video, something. And because I'm not really big on deadlines and pushing myself, I like to build little tanks because they're just so quick to put together, and they look all right, and it's just instantly stimulating that you go from runners to a finished model in a very short period of time. So I do enjoy tanks and stuff like that, but then they get a bit quick and they get a bit boring quite quickly. So then it's good to work on a much larger project like this. Now this is a high grade, out of the box. My first Femina I think I made in like 2.5 weeks with paint. Not too much of a problem. The second one took a little longer because I was modifying some putty, some other stuff. This one will be the longest because there's going to be quite a bit of scratch building, and I want it to look okay and stand up with the other two, which is mostly what the kits have. They're all the same thing. They're all Femina, but they all need to look like the different versions of her. This is a big flat seam, so it's quite easy to remove without too much work. I'm not even looking at it. I'm just relying on where my fingers is dragging on it, but at the same time I'm not going to the seams, I'm not going to the folds. When you've sanded so many models, you just learn almost how to do it by touch. And have a look. I could see the seam with my naked eye, but you can almost not see it on camera. I could see there is a few kind of tiny scratches, and if you just go backwards and forwards between the second finest and the finest, that can almost go perfectly smooth. Now you cannot remove all the scratches. There are some permanent scratches. We created it with the thickest sandpaper. Now I'm talking a lot about sanding, but there is some important factors in sanding that impacts the painting and other layers. It's quite a few times, and there's so many videos I've done about priming, and priming makes a big difference also to your work. And a lot of the primers I've talked about from the Mr. Hobby range is microfillers, and you got like 500 and it works its way down. We've got a ton of fine scratches. Now microfiller is not going to cover things like chunks of plastic cut out, or a big scratch from a knife, or nubs or something. But all these fine scratches that I've made with thicker sandpaper, I can't quite get out, and it's near impossible even in automotive. Spraying a spray putty or a microfiller primer will cover those no problems. It'll fill it, and it's going to produce a smooth surface. And then you buff that primer, because that primer is not going to be perfect with 2000 or finer. And then you can start applying paint. And that is a base coat, of course, because you might weaken some bits of the primer. Then you put your base coat, and then you do your main painting, and you do your glosses and polish and whatnot, and then you get a nice mirror ideal finish. It's a lot of work, and if you got all sorts of funny, weird detail bits and whatnot of a gun, then that could take for almost ever, but it's well worth it. And then you got those Gundam kits where they got the special finish, the foils and all that. And again, with that, you stick them together and they got seam lines and whatnot. But if you can finish something that has a really beautiful high gloss metallic mirror finish, every mistake has been covered, every seam line, every nub and whatnot, and you put the two models next to each other, it will blow people's minds once that's been perfected. And there's a few models out there, master grades, high grades, whatever, that it's just out of the box. Every seam line, every nub, everything's gone. It's beautiful, and it's going to mirror metallic finish. And that always ceases to blow people's minds away because it's just a sheer amount of work and just a sheer, well, not perfection, but you know that just effort's been put into it to get up to that standard. Then once you start doing modifying and scratch building and stuff, they can be quite rough in, layering of styrene and putty and all that. And then putty and sanding and putting and sanding and trying to get that to be quite smooth and seamlessly blend into the model can be very, very difficult. Now, when I was at the Gunpla Builders World Cup, Darren, the guy who won the Australian heat last year with the kit that had all the panels open and extra panel lines and seam lines and all that. The kit was not painted, it was polished, but it just had all this manual stuff done that would not affect, scratch, or mess up the plastic. And interestingly, how he did that, which he talked about it there, he would scribe and do little scratches and mock-ups and layered stuff and cut things open. But if you made a slight mistake, the slightest mishap of the chisel or a knife or whatever and leave a scratch, he will sand that plastic until that scratch was gone. And he mentioned a few times that he made a lot of mistakes, sanded it, made a mistake, sanded it. He made mistakes to the point where the plastic was so thin, it was almost paper thin and it could break through to the other side. And I could imagine parts of that model is really, really fragile just by the sheer amount of material that he moved. Now, he used a finer grit sandpaper. So instead of removing a lot and then moving up, he would generally just sit there and keep sanding and rubbing with a sanding stick in a certain process until that scratch was gone. And that blows my mind. But at the same time, when he scored the seams and whatnot, he did it so lightly that it would be pretty much a micron upon micron. So when he needed to sand it, it was about removing 4 microns to get rid of a 2 micron deep seam line to get that really ideal finish. So when you're thinking about models that are that high quality, that are out of the box or modified, a lot of work and a lot of time and effort like that's put into it. So when you're looking at a Gunpla Builders World Cup champion kit and you're looking at the overall and how good one is to the other and you're comparing it, small little facts like that of how people get rid of certain aspects and the time they put into it is always overlooked. Man, that's delicious. And it's also another thing that people never consider with sanding, I'll mention again, is just pressure. The higher grit, less pressure. The lower the grit, the less pressure. The higher the grit, the more pressure. And you've just got ultimate control of how much material you can remove. And once you get to 2000, you just rub all the bits down and you just really polish it up nicely. And 2000 grit is not as polished as how fine the plastic is. If anything, you might be putting slight scratches into it. But if there's any mistake that the molding of the kit's left behind, the tiny bit of flash or whatnot, that's been decimated. And then later on, if I choose to, I can buy high grit sandpapers and fix it. But looking at it, there's still quite a bit of a sheen to it. Primer, light wipe up, polish, very, very mirror. But I do not intend to paint this in gloss. It's actually going to be quite matte. I just don't want to see any imperfections. One of the Fumina kits on top of the gun where I did a lot of sanding. There's very fine scratches. Didn't put any washes in it. It's not noticeable unless you're looking at it with a some sort of, what's the term? I'm completely fucked up. Magnifying glass. But I know it's there, and that bothers me because it's from an older time of my modelling, which is 12 months ago, but I've learned a lot in the past 12 months. I just went into my apron and I found a $20 note, so I'm pretty happy. Random bit, doesn't matter. Next bit of the leg. And eventually I'm going to say, fuck this, I'm going to get bored of sanding this, and then I'm just going to jump to another project, probably midstream, so that may occur, that may not occur. Bear with us, but you know, whatever. So sanding that down. We've covered finishes. We've covered sanding to ad nauseum. We've talked about priming and how we can use a thick primer to do the micro filling, and then you can go up to your thinner primers. If you're building a really, really good kit, such as like a 5-star story kit or something that's really high quality, the seam lines are a part of the panel lines and everything's perfect and it just looks great snapped together, and there's just no imperfections and undegated, and all it needs is paint. A primer with a microfill is completely inappropriate. You may remove some detail. That's where you use, you need to be selective of your primer. Just having, if you build many different types of models, just relying on the one type of primer may not be ideal. Unless you do a lot of modifying or scratch building. If you do many different types of models, you may consider having a range of primers and using them when appropriate. There'll be one type of primer you've got for, let's say, I don't know, a Bandai or a fine mold Star Wars kit. And you might only use that primer when you build those sort of kits. And you might only build one of those kits once every year. So you only tap into that primer then. It'd be worth getting. And then that primer is only wheeled out when you're doing that sort of job. And it just works into your finish. It's being selective of what you do. Have the right tools for the right job, the right product. When you're new to modelling and you look at all the Mr. Hobby primers there are, you might be thinking, fuck, what do I use? What's appropriate? What's not appropriate? Should I use them all or shouldn't I? Once you educate yourself, you know, you ask a guy at the hobby shop, you might ask a friend, they'll be like, oh, you try that. And for a long time, you'll be using the same primer, and that's okay. You're growing, and then you slowly experiment, and you move to the next one, and then the next one. If you're a bit of a beginner, you're listening, you're watching, and you're hearing me say, try using different primers, all the primers. And if you don't feel you're ready for it, that's cool. You look at it at a later date. The interesting and fun thing, and the fun aspect of this hobby is you explore. When you're a new modeler, you only know this much, and there's a whole world of modeling that you don't know. You're going to discover, and every turn you make is a new discovery. When you get more and more experience, there's aspects or things that you've never heard that one modeler talks to another modeler, and you go, oh, I want to try that out. Or just something that you've never considered or thought of, like barrels for tanks and guns is perfectly round, and there's a seam down the center. You need to be very careful how you sand them. Some people don't consider that, they just obliterate it with a sanding paper or whatever, and then there's a bit of a flat. You don't notice it. And then many years down the track, when you're looking at it, you go, oh, the barrels of all my guns are flat at the top and the bottom. That's weird. You might never notice it. You might do, but that's an aspect that you may pick up at some point. And then you learn to rectify that, and you add that to your level of modeling and your skill bank and your knowledge bank. And that's just what changes you as an individual modeler. Now, the problem is people sometimes push their standards. They get really good. They expect to sand this way, use this product, get this exact finish. And once you get to those high standards and levels, and you got a belief that a model is built to a certain standard for your work only, and then you go, my standard is the best, and you push that standard on other people. Consider there's people that's been modeling longer or more often than you and better, and you're pushing your standard on someone who's achieved to a higher level. You're pretty much being an asshole, because some people have methods that prefer them, and some people are still growing and learning and yet to explore and find that out at the same time. One, sort of like the guy that's spoiling a movie or a book for another person without them exploring it or finding it themselves in a nice way or naturally, instead of everything being forced on themselves immediately. And secondly, people may not be ready, wanting, willing, or even ever willing. Some people just do it casually. They're not out there to grow and learn and get better with every model. They just do it as a quick pastime, as you would play video games. Some people play video games to be to perfect it and be competitive. Some people do it to blow steam because they're just angry at work. It's pretty much the same with models. So when I talk about how to get better and how to achieve this and that, you can go, oh, I'm going to think about it and approach it and attempt it in my own work. Or you might go, oh, that's cool. I'm not going to approach it. That's fine. But the next time I look at a model at a competition or a model made by someone quite famous or someone that I respect, I'm going to look out for that. And if that's the case, I'll be like, cool, he's right. Other people do consider that sort of stuff. So it's a bit of an education, but it's there to inform people to be aware of it or not. And if you're aware of it, something that you can appreciate, sort of like watching the Olympics or the tennis. You might know a lot about tennis and watch and never play tennis before in your life, and you can criticize a level world-class tennis player for making a mistake after a tennis match and yell at them. But the fact is, you don't play tennis and you can't play tennis as well as the people on the world stage. And sometimes when I'm looking at people such as the world-class Gunpla Builders World Cup champions and the best models out there and make observations and interests and stuff, it's not because I think I'm better than them. It's sort of looking at it and go, that's how they approach it. That's the direction they went into. And then sometimes I look at it and say, is there anything I can add to my work to just creep up to that level one day? And it could happen. I don't know. May never not. Who knows? Ooh. 45 minutes in. Man, I've been talking a lot. I've got two more pieces to glue together. No, not glue. What am I thinking? Fuck. Interestingly enough, it's the end of my working week. I got a couple of days off. And then I return to work in the morning on Sunday to launch Christmas at work. And then I've got a long week, and then after that my workload cuts in half, being holidays. One of my jobs is seasonal. One of the other ones are all year round. I'll have more time in the studio. So one of the jobs is a vocational thing. It's the education year when people are at class at school. So I get good pay. I work mad hours then. And then during holiday time, I've got a bit of a cut in work. So I've got income, but I don't have to be at work as often, and I can spend time playing, and it's a lot of fun. Okay. Uh, Funnily enough, some people hate sanding and polishing. I actually don't mind it too much. It doesn't bother me too much. I kind of enjoy it. There's something a bit repetitive, laid back, tedious. Yeah, it's therapeutic. It's relaxing. I don't really have to think. I can just watch a bit of YouTube or listen to a podcast or something while doing it. And here I could just sit here and talk while doing it. Where sculpting or airbrushing, it's a bit harder to talk where I'm focusing on something. So I might be doing a video where I'm sculpting and I'll be there and I'll be sculpting away and I won't be talking as often. But I suppose that would be more interesting viewing. What I'm doing is I'm only scratching up the edges of the super glue and stuff, and here's a little harder to get into the putty and whatnot. So again, different tools for different jobs and areas. So yeah, this might not be as interesting viewing, but there's things to talk about, what I'm thinking, what I'm planning, why I'm doing this, what finish do I attend or plan to achieve. And I will put this on YouTube somewhere. Not quite on the Mokanaman because it's not very easy to watch. It's very, very long. It's meant to be live. It's meant to be interactive. I'm hoping in the future where I do this more regularly enough, there'll be a bit of an audience and there'll be a question-answer type thing. Here it's just giving out information. The putty and superglue here is heaped quite high because there was other imperfections and a lot of seams and shit. So it's going to be a lot more sanding. And hopefully it's not always going to be modelling talking. So during the Q&A could be other discussions and interesting things, stuff in the hobby, stuff in the anime, stuff, other stuff that I'll be interested in. Might talk about tobacco for an hour. I really enjoy tobacco. Pipes and hookah and all that sort of stuff. Some of my streams I want to do is set up my hookah bong, giant water pipe, and just rip that and model. I sometimes like to do that. Cigars, cigarettes, rollies, that sort of stuff. That'll be a lot of fun. I'll do that. Probably do that tomorrow. That'd be pretty cool. I've got a mate coming over, so we're gonna just rock out here. So I've got this long bench here, and there's a airbrush station just behind me, and some other things. I have a mate over tomorrow. I'll be entertaining him, so there'll be no streaming. But yeah, I'll hook up my hooker and just rip that. Oh, hello. How you going, buddy? Leech 8905. Yeah, I'm going alright, man. So yeah, I'm going to set up the water pipe and just rip that in here. Got a big glass door over there, and it's not going to stink up. This actually isn't a part of the house. This is sort of like an annexed glass room. So, you know, you could go crazy with the fumes and the paints and the smoking and whatever that goes, and there's just no impact anywhere else. So maybe in future streams, there may be some smoking. That'd be quite amusing. So we've removed, even though the putty was quite raised and heavy, this level here, that level here and that level here is not aligned, which is a pain. That is a fault more of the model kit than anything else. And since there's an overlap of superglue and putty, it's completely smooth now. That putty will never be removed from sanding unless I dig so heavily in that part, it's almost going to actually warp the part. But with paint and primer over it, that's not going to affect it. And here you can see that there's actually a bit of a dent here. So we're relying on removing all the putty here and leaving some of the putty there and smoothing it out to get to that finish that we actually need. And that way, if you look at a lot of people filming the kits, and if you see the part here, there will be a bit of a weird, funny gap, seamy thing, unless they put a mountain of putty there and sanded it back like I've done, which I'd imagine a lot of people would have done that. But it's just something that's not quite planned or looked at, and later on when I look at the model, I won't even remember that I've done that unless I look at someone else's version of the kit. And what I'm doing is just rescribing a bit of a panel line. Because there's some panel lines you just have to rescribe, but that one's quite fine. So that is not a problem whatsoever. Here, the putty work I've done is quite sloppy. That's regrettable, but only because the work's just going to be a bit more at this end. Now, another annoying thing with sandpaper, especially the high grit stuff, as I'm using it a lot, it's getting a bit soft and trickier to use because it's not holding its rigidness in the paper. Though at the same time, it can curve or contour really well around curved bits. If I was doing a flat bit, it wouldn't be too good because it'll only be the pressure not across the paper, but only in the middle of the sandpaper. So the title says, Super Fumina Custom, what is your plan for it? I was talking about that at the start of the video. So this is my third Fumina kit. I've done two. I've done one where it's out of the box and she is yellow. That's been finished at the start of the year. I've done one where I've converted her costume to look like the school uniform here. And that's also finished, and she's blue and she's got a bazooka. The third one is when she's in her sports clothing. She's got the short shorts and the crop top, and it's going to be more of a melee thing. So looking at it, she's got her shorts, which already exists. She's going to have her breasts and shoulders sculpted out in the crop top. Her midriff is going to be sculpted, so that's going to actually contour nicely from the shorts to her midriff. Oh, sorry, her chest piece. But her shoulders up so the neck's not as long and lanky. And then it's just going to be 2 beam sabers and the normal legs and whatnot. So it's a lot of work around this section, and probably filling in the bits of from the thighs to the hip bone and the pubis region. So just replicating another outfit that she's wearing, but there's going to be the 3 of them, sort of like a honor guard or a 3-team. Oh wow, that would look pretty cool. And oh my god, that sports clothing, I would love to see it. When it's done, it'll be posted on the regular outlets. There'll be video and stuff. There will be plenty of opportunity to see it, and I do sincerely hope you enjoy it. So that should definitely work out. There's been a few people that have done it. There's many takes on it. Other famous and very skilled modelers. There'll be a different approach to it because sometimes they've got all the seams filled and articulated joints. And there's other ones where they've got all the joints and it's more looking like an action figure toy. So some of your Figmas and whatnot. So I was able to put it in those collections and it stands out like that. And others are more of a statue. I'm just making this one to blend in with the other 2 I have, and there'll be a photo shoot with them all together and whatnot. Being a big fan of the Mecha Musume genre, when Bandai did release that, there was a case of me wanting to go all out and having fun with the Fuminas. Kotobukiya does have the frame arm girls now, and they're going to be making a lot of them, and there's already a lot of those. When I'm done with Fumina, I've got a built out-of-the-box frame arms girl. That's going to be airbrushed and painted. There's a few more to be built and modified and painted and whatnot, as well as some resin figures and other stuff. I would like to get more into figures because it's just a lot of fun. I did an E2046 Samurai Girl figure very, very recently, posted some pictures up, working on a video to release very, very shortly. So how to airbrush that, how to build that is going to be seen very, very shortly. It's a lot of fun. It's a bit different from robots and stuff, but I still like building Gundam kits and Zakus and all that sort of stuff, so that's not exactly going to exit, but it's just jumping from one model to another, whatever just sways and interests you at the time. I am just sort of expanding my skills. I've been straight building for many years, but just got into painting last year. But custom parts is still very new to me. That's very cool. At the end of this stream, I'm going to release it on YouTube. I actually talked about expanding skills at the start of the video, and it's just a very small, gradual thing. Building and learning skills and methods is sort of like following a book series or watching Game of Thrones. You discover things, and sometimes when people jump on your ass and go, you're not doing something right or correctly, you're not good enough, it's almost like being spoiled a part of the book. You just enjoy and discover every bit and element and growing in the hobby as far as you're willing to go, and learning those bits and mastering it at each step. Like if you're enjoying a bit of media, watching a series or reading something. So just take your time and enjoy the journey. And if you pick up any tips and tutorials and tricks and stuff, you try to replicate it, you work at it, and it's all good. Painting's a lot of fun. It's a whole element to kit building. And there's just so many directions you can go at to get it right and making it look pretty good. Customizing does take quite a while, but you just start very short and small. You might extend the piece, add a small plate, add a small part, and then you just jump from piece to piece to piece until you start doing full scratch builds and kit bashes and all that sort of jazz. So you just go as comfortable and as far as you're willing to go, because sometimes biting off more than you can chew, or going too deep and ruining a project is not too much fun, which I've experienced that before. So just take your time, enjoy it, have a lot of fun. It's nothing too serious that you need to get too worried over whatsoever. And at the moment, this kit was a bit of a bother beforehand, because being my third Fumina, I started getting bored with it. So I put it aside to work on the Gunpla Builders World Cup and a few other things, picking her up again now. A bit I felt was a pain in the ass, but I'm getting into it and having fun with her right now, so I'm pretty happy. And there's quite a few new skills that I've picked up in the past 6 months, so I'm working it into her. I'm looking at the other two, and I can see how there's been a small gradual change in my hobby in such a short period of time. And since there's streaming and Twitch and all that, I could actually talk about what my current methods are before a tutorial can be made, because tutorials are very time consuming and it's very long and hard to make. And I'll make a tutorial, I'll put it on Facebook, YouTube, and I hope it's forever. I look at a video I made 3-4 years ago, and it just doesn't even sort of showcase or replicate how I do things anymore. It's still valid, but it's just really out of date for my current style, though it might still help out other people. So it just still stays up there. But it's quite funny where an experienced person will watch a very old video and go, hey, that's not the best way to do it, and you're doing it wrong. And it's sort of like, yeah, but that video is like 5 years old, and that was sort of acceptable to do back then. So it's just sort of like, it's a time capsule. It's something that belongs to a different time when it was relevant to the hobby then. It was relevant to me now, but it's just not relevant anymore, though still a useful reference. Sort of like looking at historical textbook or history book, reading about what happened in the Napoleonic Wars is not relevant to anyone now, but it's good to see how the world got from then till now, and technology, geopolitics, and all that. And there's something to learn, but it's something you do not want to replicate, because it's quite a fascinating and turbulent time. Which the only reason why I brought that up now is because I've been doing a lot of reading on the subject. Very big fan of history. So, I thought I was done, but I still got one more leg to go, and I've just been sanding bits for almost an hour now, but that's not a problem at all. One thing, I'll just quickly repeat it for you, mate. What I've been talking about with my current trend of filling seam lines. The problem is with Van Dyke kits, there's a lot of tension under the pegs and joints and whatnot. And when you glue it together, the glue is good for holding the part together, but it's not good for holding tension as well. And as there's pressure put on ball joints and heating and retracting of the plastic in weather and environments, the seams will split under the putty and the paint. And I've got some models, really old models, where there are splits along the seam, and it's sort of like you've done a bad job filling the seam line. No, many years ago the seam was fine. It's split because of the material. So what I've been doing is, when I glue pieces together with cement, I'll run a fine amount of super glue, which holds it together and it never splits. But you can't sand super glue because it's harder than plastic and you damage the plastic. I put a layer of putty and then I sand it. The process takes so much longer than normal modeling, but I don't get split seams ever. If I'm playing with the articulation, if I drop it, if it gets hot, if it gets cold, whatever. Even if I was to sell it as a commission, so you can imagine if you make a commission model and it's beautiful, and then the seams split over time, the person who bought the model is going to be absolutely pissed because they spent hundreds of dollars on it. And this is another reason why I don't do commission models, because I know that models change, paints fade, things split, things damage. I would not sell a model for money unless I know that if I make it well, it can stay looking good for ages. So I still got a lot to learn. Not to say that I never will do it, but that's just another thought, that I still got a lot to learn about the hobby and a lot to perfect before I can consider taking that next step. And I know there are people who do commission work that are still fairly new to the hobby compared to how long I've been into it. But that's decisions that everybody makes, and if they feel they're ready to go there or not. Such as how Leach here does not feel quite ready to go straight into customizing. And that's okay. You just take your own pace, your own step, and I'm taking my own pace. At the moment, I'm actually having a lot of fun still playing with 3D printing and whatnot. And that's something that some people will probably never jump to, because it's just way too intimidating, and heavily investments of money and time and skills is required. Talking about 3D printing, if anyone does have an interest in that, Robot Adventures, Reuven, he does a few Gundam videos, a lot of Transformers stuff. He's talking about 3D printing at the moment. He's entertaining the idea. Now, sometimes he finishes projects, sometimes he doesn't. He's entertaining the idea of getting a 3D printer to make his own Transformers. So CAD it up, print the bits off, add screws and bolts and stuff, and then paint it. Now, there is a good chance that he can do it. I don't know how much I'm allowed to actually talk about him in person, but he did talk about this on camera. He's very familiar with the software AutoCAD. He has an engineering background. So it's something that he may commit to, and has been in engineering and CAD for a lot longer than I have. I've only recently added the professional world of engineering through my private life and work. So that's something he may commit to, and it could be something very interesting to follow and see what a true engineer's take would be of the hobby of modeling robots and 3D printing. I've put his video on Facebook on the Mokanaman, so that's very recent, and that'll be very easy to find. It's worth having a look at. It's a bit crass, but I assume if you follow me long enough, you probably definitely don't mind that. So that could be quite interesting for anyone that's looking in that aspect of scratch building and kit bashing. So that's a bit of a plug for a mate. And yeah, we've been here for an hour, and I've just been filing seams. So it's probably not the most riveting of streaming content if you're talking about Twitch. People playing Overwatch and video games and tournaments, and 3-4 people talking an animated ass on screen or something. Well, I do thank you for taking the time to check this out, and we'll see how far we can grow this platform profile. Could be very, very interesting in how far we can go. Who knows? I'm having a lot of fun. My bamboo stick in the air and this camera and all that sort of stuff. The first few streams I did was not too interesting. It was just the laptop lid down, and it's sort of a bit of an angle and a dodgy way of looking at my map. But investing a bit of money and getting this set up, it's quite nice. I kind of like it, and I'll try to do this a few times a week. But this time of year, work is quite busy. It's going to be a bit sparse, and then we will get into probably December, January more streams. I love watching Gunpla builds on Twitch. Cool, man. I've watched a few Gunpla and military streams. I probably watched a lot more military modeling streams. I think it's the guys that play the World of Tank, and then tanks, and then they build some 72nd or 35th model kits, and they paint them up and all that. And it's just cut the runners off, and they play a bit of music, and they stick it together and stuff. And talk about every subject under the sun, and responding to the stream. It's pretty interesting. I've watched a few, but I've never really followed them. I'd see 2-3 streams, and then I moved on to watching something else. I don't really stick around one place for too long. There's just not enough hours in the day. I'd love to follow all sorts of things and play video games and do other things, but time is just the factor that's not on my side. But yeah, there is a Gunpla community on Twitch. They do snapping, and they do a lot of talk and vlogging and interviews and all sorts of interesting stuff. I don't think this platform is going to be anything like the other Gunpla Twitch streams, so I don't think there's any merit in picking up their audience or something. But if there is a crossover, there's people interested, that could always be very cool and very interesting. I'm happy to take all overs. Oh, which one? There's two or three girls. They had pretty big audiences. I think at the time of viewing them, they had about 20, 30 people in the stream, and she had something like a few thousand followers. I don't remember their names. There's just so many people in the hobby. I'm terrible with modeler names, famous or not, but they're not people that are in my current circle of friends and contacts. Their streams were really good. It was polished. They had all sorts of overlays and background music and some sort of donation button, and it was very, very professional. And I assumed that they probably do some video games on the side as well. So very embarrassed. I don't know their names, but I'm just really, really shit with that. But I'm surprised if other people don't know me. So that's all cool. But I've definitely learnt some things about them and taken it away. I actually kind of like the concept of having like a little square at the side so you could see their faces. They talk and move around, and then you could see their hands and stuff, engage with eyes and facial expressions. I found that to be a lot more engaging than people with just the outlet of just their modelling mat and as they work. You probably don't need to see my face, but it's just that level of engagement and whatnot. Another pain in the ass thing is I had a bit of a sleep after work, and I got up and I was like, I'm going to stream. And I sat down and I prepared my work desk and all that, and I was like, oh fuck, I should brush my beard and hair. I probably should wear some pants. But yeah, I did that, and I'm on here, and it's all interesting and fun. And I'm almost just about finished polishing this part, so we could probably assemble the legs. That could be very cool. If you guys have any suggestions of people that do modeling or gunpla, sorry, yes, you are right. I feel more like I'm actually talking to you instead of me talking to a pair of hands. Yeah, it is like that. If you have any suggestions of Gunpla Twitch followers, or sorry, Gunpla Twitch channels that worth following or looking into, might get some inspiration. Yeah, just drop it down there. I'll have a look. I'll probably follow them, and if they happen to be online, I'll have a bit of a look. I'm always willing to learn and see how other people do things, because there's always stuff that you can learn from people. Doesn't matter from what aspect or level of the hobby they're in. Oh. Question. Fuck. Will there be a sexual sandwich this... fuck you, Jimbo. I should have read the name first. If I do a Monday stream, there will be a sexual sandwich. I will sit there on stream. I will assemble the sandwich. I will make love to the sandwich. And then I will eat the sandwich only if the sandwich does not remember my name. So forth. Will there be a FAP involved? Now, interestingly, it was mentioned on YouTube a while ago. There was some guy, a really big Twitch guy, one of the top partnered ones or something, and he had a big expensive setup and shit, and he was setting up a game. He was on this big couch, he had the screen, set everything up, went on his internet, went on some porn site, and was just lounging on the couch and just rubbing one out. And he didn't know he accidentally pressed start streaming or something, and people just sitting there in the hundreds just watching this guy just rub out a roper or something, he got permanently banned. So since Twitch is not into the cam show, cam girl, cam guy field, it might not be absolutely appropriate for this platform. Mind you, if there is an accidental leak on another platform where that content is more palatable for people to enjoy and consume, I am not saying that may or may not occur. Mind you, a Mokanaman sex tape would be absolutely awesome. It would be a show very much worthwhile watching. So, I am off topic. Everything is very serious and fuck, I'm off my mind track now. Everything was very, very serious and hobby related and talking, and we're right into the sexual sandwich Monday. Today's not Monday though; it's Friday. I've already had to sleep today, so I'm fucked on what day it is. So I've got this together, and this looks absolutely terrible with pubis sticking out, and you got this massive gap. It's got a lot of articulation, so it's probably worth putting some putty in there and just closing the gap even a little bit and extending the arse out a bit, so it's just more okay to look at, and then probably filling it in the inside there a bit, so that could work out. It won't be able to go all the way up. There might only be just a little bit of a swivel, but that would be enough. Like, I don't think anyone's going to be doing the fucking can or karate kicks or a shuriken or some shit, but at least it would be more visually nicer to look at. Might ram some putty in there tonight, so that's a big problem. And I roughly remember looking at when I was doing the other ones, but lol. Jimbo, mate, you're a champion. Love you, man. Scott loves you too, man. Scott loves you to hell. But it is what it is. Forgot to sand the little nub at the end of her fucking stump. Nub at the end of a stump. There we go. So the whole leg's going to be quite fleshy. So the sock bit to the flesh bit's done. It's sanded. It's quite smooth. Able to plan, like, this isn't, none of this has been pre-planned. I'm actually just planning it right now as I'm visually talking it out. So this part's okay. The legs need very little work. I've finished the other two kits and the legs look alright. There's nothing serious. There's a joint, but there's not much you can do about the joint. It's just going to be fleshy joints. The holes aren't bad. It's just around the hips to the legs just looks fucking shit. Don't like it. And this is why we'll change it to make it look more interesting, more better. Can I get in there? I feel like a snapper now. Snap, snap, snap. Not that that's a bad thing. I don't think fucking anything's bad. Sit there and build a 70-second dragon kit, that's bad. Fuck. Some parts are very loose for painting and other purposes, so it just falls apart every 2 seconds, which is a pain, and after it's finished, it'll be better and better suited. Another problem is I've extended the midriff and the torso a bit, so the connection isn't the best. That's going to have to be improved a bit with some putty and some other stuff. So shit's falling apart a bit. It's a bit frustrating, but now it's got the added weight of all the legs and other stuff. So what I might need to do is sand the midriff down a bit. Just only a tiny bit, so it can actually properly fit And now, because there's so much weight, I'll see if force works, and if force doesn't work, which looks like it's not, do some sanding and remove 1/4 mil of material, test, 1/4 mil, test, see how it goes. Love you guys too, you bastards. Sometimes some of us meets together. Scott and I did an event in the far west of our city, a place called Werribee. And in Werribee, they've got an IPMS military model show called the Bayonet. It's tiny. There's like less than 100 people there. But they do it in a World War II hangar with an actual American B-24 bomber that they're restoring and building. So they put tables around this bomber, and they sell models and have competitions and stuff. And since we've been attending it for so many years, they're kind of cool and they tolerate our bullshit and our Gundams and Mecham and whatnot. And we sort of, talk about how we love you and Justin and Simon and all you guys. It's just, man, if you guys ever came down to Australia and partied with us, it would be something. It'd be a lot like when Scott and I went to Sydney for the Australian Gunpla Builders World Cup. And yeah, you got your modelling and all that sort of stuff. Though with the people that run the distribution and sales of Gundam in Australia, they're very cool and laid back. Bit of a drinking culture with them. We went out to this Brazilian bar, and you've probably seen where I got a bit shit-faced and was, dancing with these stripper-esque like girls. Well, in this Brazilian bar, I was just eating and drinking like man. And I gotta say, Mr. Kawaguchi, man, that guy drinks like an animal. He is so much fun to be around. He's just smashing beers, doing shots. You guys came down, it would be the same treatment. It would be awesome. It would be the whole case of the hashtag Slumber Chunda all over again. It would be, if there was ever an international Gunpla meet, and you guys came out, we guys came out, and we just did a thing of, cocaine and hookers and all that stuff, man, it would go off. It would be a party and a half. So, I've removed some material, and it fits all of a sudden, but not quite, not good enough. Might throw a magnet in there. That could work a little better. Oh, that works. There we go. This one's a bit taller than the other one, so her feet's almost touching the ground. Fuck. I normally do that when I model and shit falls apart like that. I'm just going off by the mouth, so it's something you definitely don't see on YouTube. Yeah, that works. Fuck it. Good enough. I don't care. Everything goes all quiet. Fuck. Why is it not fitting no more? There we go. That's a weird joint. There. Yes. So we've got it going. That kind of looks creepy as fuck, but whatever. I've sort of got like a wall right in front of me here. So I've got a window here, and I've got the blue curtain white table thing going on here, which you guys see in all my work in progress pictures and shit. And I've got a camera. Snap a quickie. Weirdly enough, a camera is a very important bit of my kit with posting online, social media, work in progresses and references and stuff. when my camera broke down and I temporarily bought a cheap camera to get that sent off to repair for a couple of weeks and getting the money together and whatnot, suffering a cheap shit camera was such a pain. I just never realized until after then, which is at the very start of this year, how important of a piece of kit it is. And I am a lot more neat and respected. I respect it a lot more. I don't take it to reenactments and LARP and get dust and dirt and shit in it as often. But getting it serviced more often's alright, because just going without it again it's fucked. So got these articulated joints to do now. That's a kind of a job. Really don't want to do it now, but fuck it. So if I do it now, I don't have to do it later. I would fly down to Australia just to taste your jerky, mate. I've got some jerky on right now. The half the household smells of it. One's sriracha, one's barbecue. Saw the pictures. God damn, it looks tasty. Found this place in my city. It's run by a bunch of Texan guys, and they make the liquid smoke and the smoke chips and all that. Jerky's it's a real American thing. And just the one thing that always put me off from making jerky, because I got a dehydrator, is just getting my hands on the liquid smoke. And when I found these crazy guys here, just buying it, adding it in a bit of some chicken wings, adding it in a bit of jerky, and it's the best. Jerky is so fucking easy to make, it's ridiculous. I really like jerky. There's an Asian style jerky house that has Western and Eastern jerkies sold in these big bins, and you can buy them by the 100 grams, sort of like a nut place. I always used to drop $10-20 there every week and get these pissy little bags of jerky and just, have a piece every now and then. It's too expensive. As soon as I found out that it's just so easy to make and put shit together, it's just fucking making it all the time. Every week I do a batch, nice big kilo, you get a big jar of jerky. It's like, fuck yeah, I've got a jar of jerky. No one else has a jar of jerky. And you share it with your mates. You give some to your mates, family members, little baggies. It's almost like I'm a fucking drug dealer running around with a backpack and a car with these Ziploc bags of jerky and handing it out to all sorts of people. I'm the jerky dealer, man. It's like Breaking Jerky Bad type thing. Absolutely awesome. I should do my own label, just quit work, quit life, made jerky full time. So much fun to make. It's so easy to do. Too many nippers. Oh, fuck. 18. There's like so many parts and bullshit. This is the worst bit of the kit. Like, the whole build fighter things where they got the backpack and they got these articulated arms to have extra shields and guns and stuff. That is so cool. And I bought a heap of parts so I could have access to these arms. But then just the amount of sanding to get them right sucks. But at the same time, they're just so cool with the extra articulated arms, and it's... That's another thing, Jimbo, mate. You got to come over, you got to taste my meat, man. It's tasty looking meat. Yeah, these arm bits are just a pain in the ass. Well, I cut this one out. I'll show you all why. You can't even see it with this camera. This is an expensive as fuck digital camera, and you can't even see it with this camera. That's bullshit. It's gone a bit furry. Whatever. So, down the center is a parting line. That's where the two halves of the molds go together. It pushes out some material. And you got this ugly as fuck line. It's not really noticeable in the plastic. It's hard to see. And with a snapper, that's okay. You just can't see it. As soon as you put paint, finishes, and a wash on it, it fucking jumps out, stands out. It looks shit. And it's just, I'm adamant about removing it. And there's just all these little lumps and bumps, and sanding around all those contours is just so time consuming. And doing it twice for 4 bits, or 4 arms, doing it twice, 8 arms, that's pain. Doing it again, it's a case. Have to do it. But I'm not looking forward to it. They're complaining, and it's like, fucking hell, Alan, stop complaining, man up, don't be a bitch, build the fucking arms, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal, fuck you, but yeah. Cutting out the bits. Like, there's one thing with, fuck, where did I go? There we go. It's one thing that watching, like, people on Twitch building gunplay and stuff, they're just going away and they're talking and they're cutting around the runner and whatnot, and I'm just looking out to make sure I cut the right bit out, and I'm looking at the instructions, and I sort of just stop and go, E3, E3, A8, A8. I'm not talking, and it's sort of like, when you're watching a Twitch stream, it looks so easy, and then you try to pull it off. It's hard. It's sort of got someone just snapping away, and I just thought, fuck, I could do that. It looks so easy. I'll sculpt while talking on stream, and then as soon as I look at some numbers, my brain just turns off, or my mouth turns off, or my ass turns off. I don't know. It is what it is. Come on, this place has like 3 nubs. It doesn't need 3 nubs. It's more nubs to clean up. I've only got 2 nubs. Then you got those kiss asses on Facebook and around, and it was like, oh, Bandai, what are you thinking? Why did you fuck the model this way? Why did you fuck the model that way? Why did you fuck something else up? And it's sort of a case of, and this is why this video is not on the Mokanaman channel. I've already stopped giving a fuck. It's a case of, Bandai, why do you fuck me here? Why do you fuck me there? Why do you fuck me in the ass? P Bandai, blah, blah, blah. Not fair. You don't target the West. You don't do this. You don't release enough kits in Southeast India, whatever. Shut the fuck up. Manufacture your own kit from an injection molding kit and draw it on AutoCAD and do everything yourself. By yourself. Which, mind you, project-wise, who knows? I might make a machine. That'd be cool. My own models. Watch that space. Not saying anything. I've talked to a few people, but yeah. Could be a thing. Got a 3D printer. Who the fuck knows? Might be at this for half an hour longer, and I'll go do some other shit. Fuck, it's 3 in the morning. Oh well. Though I suppose it's some other more decent time in the States or the UK or India or somewhere, I don't know. Play it all by ear. We'll make this fucking arm. Move all these fucking nubs. Can't even talk about, this is, you can do it this way to do it really good, and you can do it that way to do it really good. It's just removing nubs and sanding. It's something everyone's done. I'll tell you, this nipper is from Runway 13. It's called the Kitty Tool. I found it in my toolbox one day. This nipper does not belong to me. Some cunt borrowed my deltas, and they didn't return the deltas, and they put this slightly inferior fucking nipper that I've never seen, never used, never owned in my life. I've got this piece of shit nipper in my toolbox. I don't even know how the fuck it got there. I know the guy from Runway 13. He sells some mint airbrushes. He's a really cool guy. Does like anime resin figures and stuff from time to time. And now I've got his fucking branded nippers in my toolbox. I don't know how the fuck it got there. It just materializes itself. You lose some tools, you gain some tools, and you're just like, what the fuck is the go with these nippers? Why do I have it? Why it's in my toolbox? It's in my circle of my mates. Someone from Mecha Workshop. Fuck you, you've got my deltas. I want my deltas back. It's my deltas. Pay $12 for that shit. These are my first deltas. About 15 years old. They're shit. The blades fall off. The fucking handles fall off. And it still cuts plastic. It's not God hands. Fuck God hands. I don't like God hands. Skinny, they snap. People drop them off their bench and it breaks and all sorts of shit. Stuff Hobbyco is not bad, but you know, they're going to lose their sharpness. These are for military kits. Godhand can suck my dick. Fuck him. I don't care if that's controversial anymore. I've just gone too bad. It's like everything's serious and nice and laid back, and now I've gotten angry. Not serious angry. It's like fuck Hobby Link Japan angry. I don't like Hobby Link Japan for unreasonable and stupid reasons. It's something that I should be forgiven for. If you like them and shop with them, that's cool. Just no hair off my balls or anything. Just carry on, do as you please. It's all good. They fucked me once, so I really like to pull up the ante and just talk shit about them online. Facebook and the internet is all about shit talk. As I like to be a bit helpful and do the whole YouTube thing and just help out and whatnot, I understand and respect there's different people out there, and some of them can do language and all that sort of stuff, and you know, my bullshit, my sandwiches, all that sort of stuff. And there's some people who are a bit more sensitive, and you know, there's kids and religious people and all that. But if you have noticed, when you've jumped in on this stream, it says it may contain adult content or language. It means after a certain point where I'm serious and talking about models and all that sort of stuff, a little after half an hour to 1 hour, it will be something about some sort of bullshit or fapping or something that's just going to pop out and do something. I don't know. So I've got these bullshit parts. Fucking nubs galore everywhere. They're in the way of how they're meant to be assembled. So I can fuck that off. Fuck that off. I can drink this. I can smoke this. Now what shits me is I like to vape. And I've got about half a dozen e-juices. They're in a box and they're next to a couch. And there's a bit of an incident where I was with some guys. We're drinking. A drink got spilt in my fucking vape box. And it soaked all the labels off and they've fallen off. And I've got 6 and 7 e-juices. 1 or 2 of them are disgusting. The rest of them are pretty good. I don't know which one is which. All the labels have fallen off. So I've got Red Bull. So I've got Red Bull in here. I've got a big thing of like half-litre bottle of green tea vape juice. It's delicious. And yeah, that works out. It's Kangatech K-Box. So that's a big sub-ohm motherfucker. Blows out big clouds. All hipster and shit. But it's got a nice... It's good. It hits the throat. It's like ripping a bong. So I like it. At the end of this stream, I'll pull out my water pipe. So we'll have a look at it just before I cut out. So that could be really cool. It'd be a treat for you guys that stay for the end. If you watch my stream on Facebook or you're watching this, at the end of this stream, I will pull out my water pipe. So here is an incentive to stick around more or less. You got like 3 people watching. That's fucking awesome. And also, I do get this silly when I model. And the longer I model, the more sillier I get, the more stupid shit that happens. Model comes out alright. The silliness just comes out at record numbers. So that's pretty funny. But at the same time, I am doing the nude apron thing. I've got a shirt, I've got an apron on. There's, you know, nothing else. It's not even the height of summer yet. The weather's been really fucked of late. It's meant to be like late spring, early summer, and it's cold as fuck. I opened my window for the first time in 6-7 months last night to have a sleep, and fucking dog snoring like. I think like, what the fuck's going on? I can't even vap in peace. I'm freaking out for a little while. What the fuck's that sound? Later on, I was like, oh yeah, my dog snores because it's fucked. Again, your dog. Nah, it's alright. He's a husky, but he snores. He snores really, really loud, and he sleeps right out my window. Open there because in summer I'm a window open. I'm probably snoring and he's snoring and he's like appreciating my company and I'm like freaking out and it's all really, really, really weird. And the fuck thing about these bits is I'm positioning him around my really fat fingers and I'm using a sanding stick and removing the flash mark. And that's alright, but the problem is it's all scratched up to shit house because of how coarse it is. And I can work my way down the wet sanding. Polish them up a bit. I'm not going to go as far as 2000. It's tiny. It's not going to be glossy. It's not worth it. But it will be all sanded nicely. And just getting around, having it folded and having it wet really makes a big difference. But as soon as it gets too soft and it's not as easy to use, it will be replaced very, very shortly with my big happy fucking bag of sandpaper. Just cut out little strips, write down what number it is. It's too easy. It's impossible to fuck it up. Which I will figure out a way how to do it. I fuck everything up. I've got a case of dick fingers. Everything it touches just gets fucked. So come Mondays, at the sandwiches. You know what I'm talking about? Fucking sexual sandwich Monday. Come home from work. Monday's a beautiful day. I only work half the day. Come home from work. I go past a place called Sunshine. It's a bit of a hole. There's like drunk people and dickheads everywhere. It's very famous for the Australian typical, what's the term? It's sort of like the Aussie version of a redneck. It's the bogan, Ocker bogan. And these are the people, you might watch, I don't know what the fuck you watch on TV. You watch the Crocodile Hunter, you watch one of our soap operas, I don't even remember what it's called, Home and Away or some shit. And they're saying, oh, mate, Stroof, all that sort of stuff, and they've got that really heavy accent. The people who have the heavy accents in Australia, the very heavy one, they say g'day, mate, and all that bullshit, either in the country, so they're sort of very similar to the American redneck, or they're of a lower demographic in our cities, and they're normally unemployed. They're on some sort of gear, unemployment benefits, and they just walk around smoking, drinking, starting fights, and calling people shit cunts. And you see them on the streets, it'd be particularly women, and they're nicknamed Shazzers. And they go around and they go like, oh, you can't, oh, fuck you doing, where my diaries at, can't, oh. And probably to the people who's uninitiated in Australian culture, language, or lived here, listen to a typical Shazza talking and they won't even know what the fuck they're saying. It may as well be a foreign language to someone from the States or the UK or something like that. So it's quite amusing. And there's a television show called Housos, made in the same city as I am, and it's quite hilarious. It showcases that quite well. If you can locate that on, by a guy named Paul French, if you can locate that on YouTube, it's quite hilarious. I find it funny, but it's too close and realistic to home. I actually met some of those guys through my work, so that's alright. It's quite interesting. As interesting as looking at a fucking cutting mat, looking at a dickhead cut up tiny, tiny pieces and sand them up because he's got some sort of, fetish for having a tiny little fucking line disappear. Who knows, who knows. It's all hearsay, as they say. I think this stream's come out quite good. That's definitely getting uploaded. Did some pretty funny streams. Was talking all sorts of shit. And my very best streams I converted over to the PhD Manchild channel, and the average streams I left on Twitch. And because there's like some sort of setting or something I haven't hit, or because I'm not partnered or whatnot, Twitch saves like YouTube all of your streams, which is things you can watch past streams. And then one day those are all deleted, and it says you can upload videos and keep them here and leave your recorded streams here. And I'm thinking, you can't just delete all my streams. It was like 20 hours of streams of me working on this one kit. And they're all gone, and I've only saved about 4 or 5 hours onto the PhD Manchild. So that was pretty shit. So I'm going to try to do... I might do some shit streams, but I'm going to try to keep my really good streams on a hard drive and on YouTube, so people can rewatch them. There might be something worthy of something someone can get out of it at a later date. But yeah, I reckon this stream would be worth watching again. I haven't left the room. I haven't had a break. I haven't pissed myself. I haven't done anything, so that could be alright. But since I chucked this stream up on It's a Gundam, the traffic's not been too bad. So it's probably the best traffic I've ever had. In the end, it is what it is. We'll get into some modeling propaganda-ish, chatter-ish, talking-ish, something or other. Fucking rambling now. That's a bad stage. That's the level where the silliness of the bullshit I produce is probably going to get incoherent at one stage. But I ain't give a fuck. When I get to the incoherent part, I mean, stuff starts to get a bit crazy. Though I'm still not fapping on stream yet. I need to find another service where that's more acceptable, and that could happen. It'd be like Bad Elvis or something, where, you know, do like some Elvis covers, and then, you know, starts getting blown while on stage and smokes a meth pipe and bottles some guy or the guitarist. There's some sort of punch on some other shit. What was it, Dirty Elvis? Or was it Bad Elvis? I think it's Dirty Elvis. Might Google that. No, better not. I might get in trouble. It's either Dirty Elvis or Bad Elvis. If you can find footage of those concerts, it's the funniest shit ever. It's hilarious. Like, if tits and dick and violence and alcohol abuse is not your thing, don't Google it. If it is, it's awesome. And Elvis music. Pretty sure it's Bad Elvis. It's another thing I've been watching that might be interesting to some people. I think it's called Hot Ones. It's either the name of the show or... No. I think the channel's called First We Feast, and the segment on the YouTube channel is Hot Ones. It's where this guy interviews rappers, DJs, icons, YouTubers. Doesn't matter if the person being interviewed is something of interest to you or not. It's just the concept of the interview style is interesting. This cunt will make... now, I'm like the biggest fan of chicken wings. I think chicken wings is like, it's the food of the gods. Really, really nice smoky or chili chicken wings. This guy makes 8 chicken wings, and they used 8 different type of hot sauces or chili sauces, ranging from cock sriracha all the way to some of the world's hottest chili. And you progressively eat one wing to another wing, get spicier and spicier, and you ask these guys all sorts of questions and funny life stories and all that sort of stuff. Oh my god, I want chicken wings. Somewhere on Facebook I'll put up a recipe of chicken wings, man. I do the best wood fire or oven baked chicken wings. Chicken wings is the shit. So there's a show called Hot Ones, and I watch it because I just love chicken wings. And they just eat chicken wing after chicken wing, and it gets more and more progressively spicy. And they just talk to these rappers and stuff, and it just gets from, you release a single, blah blah blah, straight to. So if you're at the club and they bring out white powder and you get a BJ, are you gonna accept it? And they're like, oh yeah, not only that, they talk about other things and tips like you do not touch your dick when you're eating spicy food or preparing chicken wings because it is gonna hurt for fucking hours. And it's just stuff that I could really relate to that I just find absolutely amusing and other stupid and crazy shit. And they've done, Harley from Epic Mealtime and Thomas Chong and about all of his weed stories and some other guys who were smoking with Bob Marley and just get into the more dank side of interviewing and just shenanigans. It's a really really fun show. First We Feast, the Hot Ones segment. They made their own sauce called Hot Ones. I'm sure if you Google that with interview or Hot Ones chicken wings or some shit like that, you'll find the show. It's very addictive. I'm trying to watch them all at the moment. It's it's so much fun. It's pretty much my favorite YouTube channel at the moment. And there was another one I was watching when I was at work. I don't remember the name of the channel. I don't remember the name of the series. But if you Google how to make prison food or prison cooking hacks, that was quite hilarious. So it's run by this gentleman of colour in a bit of a rap West Side gangster approach. And it just shows you how to make stupid shit with packet ramens and Easy mac and cheese and Mexican condiments and like the sort of crazy foods he used to make when he was in prison. And it's absolutely, some of them you look at it and you go, oh, yeah, that's some interesting cooking hacks. It could work. And some of it you look at it and it's like, you're going to fucking eat that? The desserts are really clever. Thinking about replicating like this one where they make a cake mix and put it in this plastic thing and they put it on top of a heated water pipe and they just let it slowly cook through the day and expand to make this this bag cake. That amused me to the point where I'm going to try to make it and put on my hot water service just to see what the fuck happens. But that's the concept of prison cooking hacks and other hacks or any sort of prison hacks is just really, really fun to watch on YouTube. It's just a crazy thing that I'm just in the moment. A few months ago when I was doing the AutoCAD work for my Gunpla Builders World Cup kit, I was watching stuff on people exploring the deep or darknet and getting into stupid shit and conspiracy sites and trying to find red rooms and scaring themselves stupid around a creepy site that turned out to be a My Little Pony fan site or something. That was fun. That was cool. Watched that for a while, but yeah, I get to some fucking weird levels of YouTube. There's just a lot of strange stuff. Warhammer 40,000 lore videos. I used to be into the game heavily, but never got into the lore of everything. And some of them virtually like reads out some of the books and primers and whatnot. That's mildly okay. It's a bit more on the geekier spectrum of such, but watched a bit of that. So that could be very, very, very interesting. Still sanding this piece of shit. So yeah, chicken wings. I'll cook some chicken wings next week when I finish school. When people hear school, finishing school, exams, that sort of stuff, I don't study. I do short courses here and there to update stuff for my job and whatnot. There's some licenses and certificates you need to get from time to time for high risk and dangerous work and working at heights and all that shit, electrical. So part time I work as an entertainment stage technician for stage and TV. And another job is teaching engineering. So on Thursday, it was yesterday, I had to go to school to refresher my scissor lift license, where it's a big lift like a cherry picker, but it's a scissor action. It goes really high. You do work, you go down, you drive around. It's a fun toy. So I had to resit that, and I haven't done it in like 10 years. But I've been operating it and following the laws and the updates and stuff very regularly. The safety newsletters. His teacher comes along and he's doing his thing and whatever. And sat the test, did the practical, all that. Got 100% on everything. It was really easy, but just couldn't give a fuck. But I knew the subject matter well, so study wasn't a problem. My other job, I teach. I've got a mixture of local and international students. And some of the students are shit cunts, and they slack off. They play on Facebook. They don't do their work. They don't listen to lectures. They don't do their homework. They come in. They're close to failing. They cheat. They copy. They get information from God knows where. When they sit their assessments and exams and shit, they fail or they come close or they do stupid shit. It's like, what's going through your head? What are you doing? It's like, I'm a student. Life's hard. Blah, blah, blah. You're at school for 6 hours a fucking day. What's your problem? You listen to your lecture, you do the work in the classroom, you go home, you do a tad more work. That's all there is to it. What fucking else have to get through your head that you need to do extra? It's not hard. You can do part-time jobs and other things. Other people do it easily. Other people don't. Just pull your head out of your urethra and fucking focus. They don't. And then they cry and they beg and they're like, come on, please pass me, pass me. This is universal level shit. These fuckers are adults. And they're crying and carrying on and stuff. Well, younger adults, like, they're between the age of 19 to 25. But it's like, shit, do not cry in my presence. I can't stand that. It's ridiculous. I'm not going to pass you. But it's all very, very crazy. So we're almost at the 2-hour mark. I'm going to deliver what I promised. My water pipe. Coals. Got some hookah. I think it's upside down. So there we go. So, you put the tobacco in there, bit of a tin foil. You put the coals on top, light it up. You fill that up with water, and you just smoke away. So I'll set that up tomorrow. I've got some... Oh man, that smells really, really, really good. Got some really, really sweet double apple Turkish tobacco in here. And I'm surprised it's still quite moist because I just folded it over and chucked it in the box, so that works out. And then we've got natural hookah coal. And you just break off a small bit and just put it on top, light it up, smoke away like crazy. That's my little water pipe for smoking when I want some hookah while modelling. And of course I've got the white vape rig, and I've got a tobacco pipe and one of those Japanese samurai kitsuru pipe. Mate, I'll smoke fucking anything. So that was a bit interesting. Got to show that off. Fuck around for a little longer. And So I needed to pull that out from underneath my desk. Only a few minutes until it's 2 hours. I don't want to look like a pussy and back out before the 2 hour mark, so we'll clean a few more pieces. I don't know why, it's completely irrational. I'll work a little more relaxed, and I'll probably work a little faster. I've got a YouTube video to watch. It's like 2 hours. So I'll smash that. Rub one out. Have a bit of a sleep. And continue doing some more shit tomorrow. As well as laundry and other bullshit. Stuff you have to do in life. But it is what it is. I thank you for watching. It's been fun. It's been real. I will try to do this more often. I think chucking this up on whatchamacallit, I built Gundam and I'm proud and all that. So that worked out quite well. But ideally, I'd like to try to do 1 to 2 sessions, each session for about 2 hours, and just roll with the punches. And it's just really good at bringing all the content together and just answering questions and telling stories. I love to tell stories. I've got so many stories under the sun. Drinking stories, modelling stories, party stories, LARP stories, fight stories. Not like a punch on in the street stories, but, you know, more of the martial art type stuff. I don't fight people on the street. That's a bad idea. You get yourself fucked up. You know, you have scuffs in high school and other things. They're not real fights. They're just people being dickheads. But, yeah, work-related stuff. I've seen a man fuck a hand dryer in a toilet at a casino. That's messed up. You don't recover seeing something like that. You just question the mentality of the human condition, and it's sort of like, oh, what are you doing? Realizes he got caught, and he doesn't even come out like drunk or anything. He tries to assure me that he pissed himself and he was trying to dry everything out. And I'm not too sure how that is any better. It's crazy. It's all good. Thank you very much. I'll stop the stream. Catch you guys later. All the usual stuff. YouTube videos once, twice a week. Be twice a week until January. Facebook, I update stuff regularly. There's Patreon, a bit of a tip jar. If you think you enjoy all that sort of shit, you can throw it in there. Oh, thank you for streaming. Catch you next time. Thank you for watching in. And I'll see you guys later. This will be transferred to the PhD Manchild in probably an hour or so time, so people can watch and enjoy that. Ciao. See you later.